In late July of 2024, President Joe Biden made the announcement many were hoping to hear. He was dropping out of the U.S. presidential race and passing the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris. It didn't take long for Trump's flunkies to fall in line and pull out the fake news Trump manual that the GOP dove into the continuous world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're tackling a term that has sparked much debate: DEI candidate. When Vice President Kamala Harris is labeled a DEI candidate, what does that really mean? Is it a compliment, a critique, or something more insidious? Well, take a wild guess. Trump and his GOP lemmings are using this acronym to demean and devalue leaders of color, especially women. Yes, let the schoolyard bully tactics begin. Underneath these GOP hidden biases, I am seeing grown so-called macho men afraid. Yes, afraid of a woman who will put them in their place. The trash can. Welcome to That's Life, I Swear. This podcast is about life's happenings in this world that conjure up such words as intriguing, frightening, life-changing, inspiring, and more. I'm Rick Barron, your host. That said, here's the rest of this story. Conservative media outlets are unleashing a barrage of criticism against Kamala Harris as she stepped into the spotlight as the presumptive Democrat presidential candidate. Various right-leaning platforms, including Fox News, of course, conservative talk radio shows, and numerous online news sources, launched a coordinated offensive. Their goal appears to be swiftly tarnishing her image in the brief window before Election Day. Over the past couple of weeks, Harris has faced a diverse array of accusations and insults. Critics have branded her as an extreme liberal from California and disparaged her as a diversity hire. Her past relationship with Willie Brown, the former San Francisco mayor, has been weaponized against her, despite its open nature and occurring after Brown's marital separation. Detractors often have targeted her personality, mocking her laughter, and questioning her likability. Perplexing as it sounds, she's been criticized for being both overly harsh on crime during her tenure as a prosecutor and too lenient on immigration issues. Some have gone so far as to label her candidacy a coup. Oh my God. While others have resorted to mocking the pronunciation of her name. The sheer volume and variety of these attacks are striking. Harris's potential election would mark a historical milestone as the first female president, and her background as a child of Indian and Jamaican immigrants adds to her groundbreaking candidacy. It's evident that her heritage and position as a woman on the brink of securing the presidency have fueled many of these attacks, which are often laced with racist and sexist undertones. For instance, Jesse Waters, a Fox News host, questioned Harris's qualifications on his Tuesday night show, insinuating that her position in the White House was solely due to a diversity, equity, and inclusion arrangement between Biden and Bernie Sanders. Now, this rhetoric aligns with a broader conservative strategy of targeting DEI initiatives. Now, let's talk about the backlash against diversity initiatives. In recent times, there have been a growing opposition to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Critics have attempted to link DEI initiatives to various unrelated events and crises. For instance, some conservative voices have erroneously attributed the Silicon Valley Bank's downfall, Boeing's safety issues, even the Baltimore Bridge collapse have been attributed to DEI policies. In an extreme case, DEI was cited as a factor in the alleged assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. The term DEI is increasingly being misused as contempt, aimed at undermining individuals' accomplishments and worth. Now, a striking example of this was a New York Post opinion piece that referred to Vice President Kamala Harris as potentially becoming America's first DEI president. The author, Charles Casparino, a senior correspondent for Fox Business Network, insinuated that Harris's ascent to the vice presidency was due to DEI considerations rather than her substantial political experience. Evidently, Casparino failed to do his homework. This dismissive characterization overlooks Harris's tenure as a U.S. Senator from 2017 to 2021 and her role as California's Attorney General from 2011 to 2017, where she led the nation's largest state justice department. Ironically, this criticism contrasts sharply with the treatment of other political figures. For example, J.D. Vance was selected as Trump's vice presidential running mate after serving just 18 months in the Senate. As Lydia Polgreen noted in a New York Times article, if Kamala Harris is a DEI candidate, so is J.D. Vance, pointing out the disparity in how candidates' qualifications are perceived and discussed. The misuse of the term DEI extends beyond high-profile political discourse and permeates everyday work environments. It's crucial to recognize how this terminology is being weaponized and to take steps to address personal biases and prevent the harmful misuse of these important concepts in diversity and inclusion. Now let's talk about understanding the misuse of diversity terminology. The term DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is increasingly being misappropriated as a derogatory label, particularly in political discourse. This misuse aims to undermine the achievements and qualifications of individuals from diverse backgrounds. This troubling trend extends beyond high-profile political figures. For instance, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was referred to as a DEI hire by Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado. You know, Lauren, the one who got caught in a theater playing around with her man under the cover of darkness, got caught and kicked out. Yeah, that one. Similarly, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott faced the label DEI mayor following a bridge collapse in his city. Now, Scott's response highlighted the racial undertones of such language, and I quote, "We know what these folks really want to say when they say DEI mayor, but there is nothing they can do and say to me that is worse than the treatment of my ancestors." End quote. He pointed out that the term is increasingly being used as a thinly veiled racial slur. Now, it's important to be vigilant about how DEI is used in professional work environments. Consider, is it employed to describe genuine efforts towards workplace fairness and equity? Is it used as a descriptor for individuals, such as the DEI VP or the DEI director? Or did you hear the colleagues using the terms like DEI hire, diversity hire, or token hire in any setting? By being aware of these linguistic trends, we can better recognize and address the misuse of diversity terminology in our professional and personal spheres. While the Pew Research Center reports that 61% of employees believe their organizations have policies ensuring fairness in hiring, promotions, and compensation, significant disparities persist across various demographics. In professional settings, one often encounters problematic statements such as, "Well, it's obvious she got the position because she's a female," or "They needed a DEI candidate for that role to meet their quota." Another one is, "I support diverse talent, provided they're competent." These remarks reveal deep-seated biases that need addressing. As explored in the book called Reimagine Inclusion, it's crucial to challenge the unfounded assumption that standards are lowered for candidates from diverse backgrounds or those who don't identify as white. The phrase, "I support diverse talent, provided they're competent," is particularly telling. It suggests a limited exposure to individuals who think, act, or appear differently from oneself. When encountering someone perceived as different in a leadership role, do we attribute their position to DEI initiatives or to their qualifications, experience, and proven track record? This mindset implies an inherent inferiority in diverse talent compared to non-diverse counterparts. Now consider the absurdity of saying, "I support non-diverse talent, provided they're competent." Has anyone ever suggested that hiring white individuals lowers standards? As leaders, it's imperative to engage in introspection and critically examine our own biases. This self-reflection enables us to recognize how the concept of DEI is being misused, not only in public discourse, but also within our own organizations. By developing this awareness, we become better equipped to identify and address biases when we encounter it in practice. Now, addressing biased language in professional settings. When encountering colleagues misusing DEI terminology, it's important to address the issue promptly. Now, consider these potential responses. Phrases like diversity hire or DE hire can be deeply offensive. I would feel hurt if someone referred to me that way. Could we actually use their real name instead? How would you react if someone suggests that you only secured your position because of your gender? What particular aspects of their background or qualifications led you to question their competence? It's important to recognize that junior staff may sometimes mimic senior colleagues' behavior without fully grasping the implications. These situations present valuable teaching opportunities. In cases where an individual persistently uses such language with harmful intent, despite interventions, it may be necessary to escalate the matter to the supervisor and the HR department. Moving forward, my hope is that no one, whether in the White House or any other workplace, will face the label of DEI candidate. By actively challenging biased language and promoting understanding, we can foster more inclusive and respectful work environments for everyone. So what can we learn from this story? What's the takeaway? We all bear the responsibility to counter the growing anti-DEI sentiment in our workplaces. After all, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives aim to create fair and equitable environments where everyone can reach their full potential. Well, there you go, my friends. That's life, I swear. For further information regarding the material covered in this episode, I invite you to visit my website, which you can find on Apple Podcasts, for show notes and the episode transcript. As always, I thank you for the privilege of you listening and your interest. Be sure to subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you soon.